Hello guys and welcome back. So in this video I'm going to be taking you through all the classes in Crucible of Atlan. This tier list will be specifically for PVE, not PvP. I didn't want to mix these two tier lists like the PvP and the PvE one just because some classes can be really good in PvE and then completely dogshit in PvP. So I decided to separate those two. Tier lists can become a very touchy subject, so I kind of want to say this is a very personal opinion. This is how I am going to tier them according to me. I've played all of these classes, I know how they work, I've played with these classes in the game, doing raids with them, so I'm going to put all of that into account. So when I put your class in the D tier, don't lynch me down in the comment section below. Yeah, that's how I feel personally. It is my own tier list, okay? Another thing I want to say before I start is I'm not really going to be taking into account a lot of party synergies or party buffs that these classes give. Not really even party buffs, they're more like debuffs. But you guys who have played the game know one thing about Crucible of Atlan. It's the one game where you're not really get kept by your class. You will never see anyone type in the world chat that they are looking for a Mystrix or they are looking for a bounty hunter or anything like that. No one cares that you are going to do some debuff on the boss. No one cares. I think the only people who will probably care about this are the speedrunners or who want to do that, and that's like 1% of the population. So we're not really talking about that group right here. So this is just for the normal citizens. This tier list will be for the normal citizens. And with that said, let's start to this. I'll try and even if there's anything interesting about a particular class, I will be mentioning it. So yeah, make yourself a little bit of tea or coffee, and let's start. I'm gonna start with the swordsman. So the first class we're gonna have a look here is the Magiblade. So Magiblade is one class that is it's given a lot of people some nightmares. They started with this class and a lot of them are switching away from the class. The thing about Magiblade is, theoretically speaking, his damage ceiling is extremely high. This class can do a lot of damage, but emphasis on the word can, C-A-N. You can do a lot of damage. If you are a really good player, if you're not messing up your combos and stuff, your damage is through the roof. And I'm going to rate this one in two ways, right? So if you're a good player and you actually know what you're doing with the class and you have the good gear and the good build for it, then Magiblade is an S tier class. This class does a lot of damage, Now, if you are missing your combos, okay? If you are missing your combo and you drop that combo, you are a C tier class automatically. It doesn't matter how geared you are, you're gonna lose so much damage when you mess up your combos. That is the thing with a Magiblade. If I was the one playing Magiblade, it would probably land at around A tier for me, because it actually does really good damage as long as you're doing decently when it comes to playing him. But yeah, if you can pilot him like really well, then this is an S tier class. But if you can't, which a lot of people cannot, a lot of people complain about the class not having damage, but it's not really the class not having damage, it's just it's a very hard class to master, and landing his damage isn't as easy as the other classes. You have a lot of things you have to pay attention to get that damage ceiling that he has. The next class, let's look at the second swordsman class, and that is the Berserker. So the Berserker doesn't have that much damage, The thing with Berserker is you do have a very nice passive that kind of makes you cheat death, which is really good for learning new raids, and that would increase his rating a little bit if you put that into account. However, you need to know that when you select that passive, you do lose some damage, so you will be doing a little bit lower damage when you have that passive selected. So his damage isn't that good, okay? If you are like geared, of course, it's another thing, but that's not, we say we're not going to put that into account. So if you're just like in the normal, say if your damage is a little bit lower when you're in the normal 60k CP, like every other person, your damage is a little bit lower than them. So I'm going to be rating Berserker at B tier. Another thing about Berserker that a lot of people don't really talk about is Berserker does have a little bit of skill expression to the class. You can cancel a lot of his animation to do damage a little bit faster, but you don't see a lot of Berserkers doing it. So there's a little bit of skill expression in the class, but not that many Berserkers do it, and you'll often find Berserkers a little bit in the middle of the pack when it comes to the DPS meters and stuff. So for the middle of the pack, I'm gonna leave it at B tier. For the next class, let's go to the fighters now, and the first one will be the Starbreaker. Starbreaker is a really insane class. It's not a surprise for anyone. This is an S tier class. Now, Starbreaker doesn't really have much in terms of party synergy or anything like that, but she just does a lot of damage. So there's not really much to say about this class. Is a really easy class to play, very easy to land your damage as well. There's nothing to fail, there's no combo to fail. You just boom, punch the boss, do all the damage you want. A lot of damage on the class, very tanky as well. The class is very tanky, so you get a lot of shields on his the way her class just works. You get shields, so yeah, it's a really easy class, does a lot of damage, super good class. That's an S tier class. And then you have the next fighter, which is this Cloudstrider. Cloudstrider is also an S tier class. I'm gonna put it in front of the Starbreaker because Cloudstrider has higher skill damage ceiling than Starbreaker. Cloudstrider will do way more damage than Starbreaker. It's just that Cloudstrider a little bit harder to play. You will have to really master how to swap into your elements to take advantage of those two states, so those two thermal states. So your Tiger form and your what is the other? This Bird form. You do a lot of damage when you're like cycling between these two elements and stuff. And then another thing about the Cloudstrider is the cooldowns are very generous in her class, and she just has something to do all the time, and her airborne combat is just insane. So yeah, Cloudstrider has a super high damage ceiling, so that's the good thing about about her. Her only problem is that she can be a little bit harder to play for some people, so that's why you probably not see a lot of Cloudstrider. It's very APM heavy as well. You are doing a lot of element swapping here and there, doing the skills, so you really need to be on top of your game when you're playing the Cloudstrider. It is not simple damage just like the Starbreaker. However, if you play correctly, it does a lot of damage. Probably one of the highest damage classes in the game. So yeah, that's why I'm putting her at S tier together with the Starbreaker. Both fighters are S tier classes. So let's go to the Musketeers. So let's go to the Mystrix. This is a fairly new class. It was released around a month ago-ish. Mystrix is a really good class. Super good class. I'm gonna put this class in S tier. Her damage is super easy to land. She has very low cooldowns. You're gonna be spamming skills left, right, and center. She's not a burst damage class, she's a sustained damage class. You will always have something to press on your bar. You'll always be doing damage. Her damage is super easy to land. Her aero combat is super easy to execute as well, which makes her kind of really safe because she's also kind of ranged. So she's very safe from bosses and stuff. So for the few Mystrix there who actually have gear to do raids and stuff, you most of the time see them doing really well when it comes to the DPS meters and stuff. So yeah, she's actually a very good class to play. She's very fast paced and she's very easy to do well with. So I've played the Mystrix. She's one of my main alts, and I've played her with good gear on test server and stuff. She does really well. She's actually a really good class. So if you like Mystrix, yeah, you will be doing really well with the Mystrix. Now the Gunner is an interesting case. If you are playing a Gunner, you are really playing the Gunner just because you actually like the class. Gunner for some reason was left behind when people started getting their destiny sets. Yeah, that's that early guys. So I am gonna put the Gunner in B tier. I'm actually gonna put it in C tier. Let me explain why Gunner has an issue. So the Gunner, when classes were getting their full Destiny 5-piece set, the Gunner's Destiny set is just like it doesn't do much for her. It doesn't even do much for her as a class. The only thing that changes her class, the way Destiny sets work for most classes, is they kind of change how the classes play. They maybe give you new combos or stuff like that. But for the Gunner, it just gives a little bit of skill damage boost, around 10 or 20% if I'm not wrong, and then some crit damage around 30% or so. But that's about it, and that's it for the class set. So it's a little bit even the accessory set, even the 5-piece accessory set is a little as well. When you are leveling the Gunner at level 1 to at level 15 to like 20 to like 40 to like 50, it did a lot of damage. The moment you go to 60 and then you started doing raids, you realize that all other classes do more damage than you, and that is because these other classes scale so much better with their destiny sets and their accessory sets and stuff. But Ghana doesn't have a set to scale off from, so her base damage is insanely high, but there's nothing that scales that damage to like a really good level which other classes are. So that's the biggest problem that she has. So maybe when you start equipping the new raid accessories, maybe that will help her out, but right now she's actually not doing really well when it comes to the damage, and that's all she has going for her. She has very low cooldowns. It's very hard to build her as well because Cavalry, I mean, she doesn't do a lot of high frequency damage. Then you have Chariot, all her cooldowns are all over the place, so she's confused as a class. So that's why I'm gonna put her at C tier. She does good damage, but not really that good. She's probably the lowest damage when it comes to raids and stuff, because other classes just scale much higher than her with their sets and stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna settle for C tier for the Ghana. You know, I actually had a Ghana alt and actually class changed away from her to make it into a bounty hunter, so you can understand why. So yeah, that's it about the Ghana. Yeah, and then for the next musketeer will be the bounty hunter. So the bounty hunter is probably one of the easiest classes in the game. Bounty hunter does 80% of her DPS on left click. You just press one skill, it's called Rain Down Fire, for those who don't know how bounty hunter works. She has a skill called Rain Down Fire, which kind of enhances your basic attacks, and then you just hold left mouse button, and for around 15 seconds you just do a shit ton of damage using that one skill. And then you can input some skills in the middle if you want to min-max, but you can literally just use that skill and you're going to be doing 80% of your DPS. Super easy class to play. She is completely ranged as well, which is super good. Makes her super easy to land her damage as well, so you'll probably find this class really high in the DPS meters and stuff. And then another thing about this class is she does a lot of debuffs on the boss, and a very nice debuff with the vulnerable debuff with 100% uptime on the boss on that debuff, which is super good. And she has one of the best ultimates in the game where you can actually slow down a boss. So a good bounty hunter can save this ultimate and do it when a boss is doing a particular mechanic or a particular pattern that is a little bit harder for people to dodge. That's why I do not want to like start talking about those party things like her time stop, but that will like put her a little bit higher than other classes, and this is just purely just a general kind of a tier list. But even with that said, she is an S tier class. She does very good damage. I'll put her actually a bit of ahead of Mystrix. Very good damage once you build her correctly. She does insane damage, and she's super easy to play, very safe in raids, always land your damage. There's no combo you need or anything like that. Really beautiful class to play. Bounty hunter is an S tier class. And that's it for the musketeer. So let's go to the magisters, and the first one will be the elementalist. Now elementalist is this really cool class. This class actually does a lot of damage. I'm gonna put this class in A tier. He does a lot of damage. I don't really have a lot of negative things to say about elementalist, except one thing, which is you can actually miss one of his biggest nukes. So you can't miss it. So there's a little bit of skill expression there, but assuming you do land everything, this class will do a lot of damage. He's not really in the same league when you compare him to something like the Starbreaker or the Cloudstrider. So I'm gonna put him in A tier. They are like, okay, he is a little bit more consistent than the Magiblade. Magiblade is so much more skill dependent. It depends on the person's skills. Elementalist is an easier class to play. His damage is actually very consistent. As long as you don't miss the nuke, then you'll be fine. You don't miss that nuke, you will be fine. That's all. But it's a really good class to play. And then for the next Magister, we're gonna talk about the Magician. Now this class is like, if you ask people to rate this class for you, 20% of the players will say it's a D tier, 20% will say C, 20% will say B, 20% will say A, and 20% will say S. So there's like different demographics for this class. Okay, so I'm gonna say what I think about this class and how it works. So personally for me, I will rate Magician as an S tier class, but this is on the extreme end. This class does a lot of damage. If you look at Magician's kit, He has one of the highest damage bonuses in the game. One of the highest damage bonuses in the game. However, he does kind of suffer a little bit because of RNG, because his damage is a little bit of RNG into it. You need to work on his card mechanics so that because you need hearts to do the highest possible damage on particular skills. So if RNG is on your side, you will suffer a little bit if you have to actually wait to get all the hearts to do some skills. But this is also one of the hardest classes to play as well, just like the Magiblade. And if you can pilot Magician, you are an S tier class, because it will do a lot of damage. Trust me, it will do a lot of damage. But to get to that point, you actually need to invest time in the class, learn how it works, learn which skills are your diamond skills, your club skills, your heart skills. You need to have it like in muscle memory, because you will have an issue if you're playing Magiblade and you're not really so vast with the class. Your eye is just like watching the boss and watching the bar down there, see if you have hearts and stuff. But if you are like really used to the class, it's much easier because you kind of know where your heart skills are and where your diamond skills are. So for those who haven't played Magician, just know that it's kind of a Russian roulette. On the bottom of your bar, you're waiting to get a particular suit of cards to use some skills. So there is that thing, right? So if you don't play the class correctly, then your damage is D tier. It just suffers way too much, because if you start using your heart skills without the heart buffs and stuff, if you're not upkeeping your diamond buff as well, so it has a little bit of trouble there. But if you are playing the class correctly, I am inclined to put this class in S tier. You can fight me in the comments, but I believe Magician is S tier. If I could play Magician, I would have played it. So you know what? I am going to take the risk. I'm going to take the risk and I'm going to let you guys fight me in the comment section below. But I think Magician is an S tier class. And it is only going to get better. It just gets better with time. Right now it's a little bit lower, but it only gets better. If you can invest in the class and learn it, Magician is actually a super good class. And also, it is a class with the most debuffs in the entire game. This class does like 8 debuffs on its own. So it's an insane class. So yeah, Magician is S tier for me. And then we have Warlock. Now, Warlock is a class I've mained since release. So it's probably the class that I have most of experience on. This class is really cool. And I personally am a little bit biased when it comes to Warlock. I think it's the most badass looking class in the entire game. And this class does some crazy burst damage. I'm going to put an emphasis on burst damage. You do have some downtime on your rotation. Sometimes it's pretty long. This downtime can be pretty long. However, when you have your skills available, this class will pump a lot of damage. Now, when all the stars align correctly, this class will do probably one of the highest bursts in the game when well built as well. Now, one thing about Warlock is people think this class is easy to play, but it actually isn't. You actually want to really manage your curses and detonating them correctly. I do this a lot sometimes. I mess up my combo most of the time and I'm still like doing really good damage, and I can actually upkeep damage with a lot of really built classes and stuff. So Warlock for me, once you build it really well, it does a lot of damage. Now the thing about Warlock is that's all it brings to the party. It's just pure damage, and his damage sometimes isn't that consistent, because if the boss phases when you're in your transformation state, you lose your entire burst, basically speaking, and your damage kind of suffers and it's really hard to recover. And if that happens multiple times in a raid, then your damage really goes down. But yeah, I'm gonna put the class in S tier just because he has like really good damage, very good damage. But it's a selfish class as well, just like the Starbreaker. It's just pure damage, but Starbreaker is more consistent with the damage. So I'm gonna put it in S tier, a little bit lower than Starbreaker. That's where I'm gonna rank it. When you play with a Warlock, you realize sometimes you do some skills and then they completely miss, because some of the skills are placed skills, and some of those placed skills are like your highest damage skills. For example, your Stitch and Illusion. which is something you place on the ground and then it does some damage over time on the boss. If the boss moves, you lose that entire damage. Then you have the ball skill. Ball skill also does a lot of damage, but you have to place it in a particular area. If the boss moves, you lose all that damage. So there is some of those things that are a little bit annoying from time to time, especially if it's a boss that moves a lot. An example of this boss is Queen Coronation. That queen just moves all over the arena. If you look at the Queen Miranda as well in Miranda is from Queen Coronation, right? If you look at the queen from Hexchess King, she also like blinks all over the area. So if you place this skill the wrong time, that entire damage is gone, together with the stacks that it's supposed to give you. So it has some skill expression. You need to know the fight a little bit better sometimes. Sometimes it messes you up, but that's it about Warlock. It's a good class. It's a good all-round class, and his damage is insane. The burst is insane. That's all I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna put it at the S tier. And that is it for our Magic. So let's go straight to the next one. That is the Puppeteers, and we're gonna start with the first one, which is the ScytheGuard. Now, before I even say anything, I'm just gonna boom. This is an S tier class. Now, ScytheGuard has two ways to play this class. You have your support and you have your DPS ScytheGuard. If you're a support ScytheGuard, you're an SS tier class. Now, this class is insane in support just because you don't really need to do anything and you're just contributing way too much in the raid itself. You are healing, you're giving everyone damage boosts and stuff. And it's super easy to play it because it's a button you press and just everyone gets it. And it's like 100-meter radius. I think it's even more if I'm not wrong. And everyone just gets the entire buff. So super easy class to play and super valuable if you're playing in support. Now, if you are playing this in DPS, the selfish one, because there's a passive you can set up where you are now at DPS instead of a support, you're giving yourself buffs, not your team. The damage on ScytheGuard isn't that high, but it is decent. I would put it around B, just a little bit lower than Berserker. She does well. When built correctly, she does do good damage, but she suffers from long cooldowns on some of her big hitting skills. So that is that. So as a DPS, she's okay, but not that good. But as a support, she is an S tier. Most people play her as a support, so I'm gonna put her in S tier. Just a beautiful class to always have. And for the second Puppeteer class, that will be the Blademaiden. So the Blademaiden has really good damage. This class will do a lot of damage. However, this class also has some skill expression because of how your marionette works. So Blademaiden skills, the marionette on the Blademaiden kind of mimics her skills. And when you place this Blademaiden correctly, because it depends on how you're playing your class, you can land multiple skills on the boss and it will do a lot of damage. It can do insane damage, but you can mess up and actually miss them, so keep that in mind. So there's a little bit of skill expression there, and also some of these big hitting skills do have a long cooldown, so there is that thing working against her a little bit. But in terms of damage, I would say she's really high damage potential on the Blademaiden. Really high damage potential. Her transformation ultimate as well is super good for DPS. So there is that as well to keep in mind. So Blademaiden is really a good class. You have to learn a little bit about her because it's a little bit harder to play than ScytheGuard. Of course, it's much harder to play. But yeah, when it comes to just the class itself, I would rate Blademaiden as an A class. Actually, I would say an A plus class. It's a really good class. It does really good damage as well. Okay, and then let's talk about the two new classes. So the Mirage and Specter. I've actually messed around with these two classes a lot on the test server, and these two classes are kind of insane. So let's start with the Mirage. So the Mirage, I am gonna put Mirage on S tier because he does a lot of damage. Mirage does a lot of damage. He is very fast paced, has a lot of base attack speed on him. So the thing about Mirage is like a Magiblade without the disadvantages of the Magiblade, right? You can mess around, you can mess up your combo as a Mirage once you use your Momentum Blade without your stacks, and then it goes on a long cooldown, around 20-second cooldown if you don't have a lot of CDR. However, you're not punished as badly like you would be with a Magiblade, right? So you still do the damage, the best skills still do good damage. So it's not really that bad, but the mechanics is very similar to the Magiblade. So it's a Magiblade without the cons of the Magiblade. Maybe just a little bit of a con, because there is that thing about you losing damage when you mess up your combo. But apart from that, the class itself is super good. Fast class, fast paced. It is also ranged, so that's also a good thing. Whatever kind of momentum blade you decide to use, either the Electro one or the Umbro one, kind of makes you it kind of swaps around your playstyle a little bit, because the Electro one will make you a little bit of melee, because the momentum blade will dash you to the boss. But if you do the Umbro one, then your momentum blade becomes a little bit ranged, so you can play the class with almost 100% ranged when you choose the Umbro side of his playstyle. So yeah, that's the thing about the Mirage. Really good class. S tier class, does a lot of damage. In fact, I will put it a little bit higher. I'm gonna put it right there. It is there. It actually is. It is there. That's where I would rate Mirage. Really beautiful class. And for the last class will be the Specter. Now, the thing about Specter, this is the class I like most. It is also an S tier class. Now, where to place it on the S tier band over here is the crazy thing. Specter and Mirage are like two different sides of a coin, right? So Specter is full melee, and he's more into the assassin kind of a playstyle. Very high mobility, very high APM on this class. You don't really have any combo to your dropping and stuff. There is combos to work with. It's a little bit harder to play Specter, because you really need to be on top of the game when it comes to the APM side of it. But let me first rate it. I am gonna put it, they're very similar to Mirage, right? But for some reason, I do feel Specter has higher damage scaling than Mirage. Because you just need to learn the class. But it is much easier than things like a Magician and stuff, right? So Specter, I'm gonna rate Specter as an S, just because I really like how the class works and how it just plays. And his gear sets and stuff are actually super good, both for Mirage and for Specter. So these two classes will be on S tier for me. And I do believe that is how I'm going to set up my tier list. I don't think there's anything I would change. I think this is how I would leave this tier list to be as of now, because this is on our level 60 patch, and I believe this is how the classes are fair according to my own personal opinion. Some of you may disagree with some of these. If you think something should be demoted or something should be promoted, please write it down in the comment section below, and I'm sure I am gonna come and argue with you down there, because I do believe I am right. I actually believe I'm 100% right. I think this is how the classes look like in the game. So yeah, if you have something to ask, please write it down in the comment section below. I hope you guys enjoyed this little video. This is my first tier list I've made. I'm gonna be making a second one for PvP, because PvP is completely different. All of this were gonna be completely different. So yeah, stay tuned for that one. So like and subscribe to the video if you enjoyed it, and I guess I'll see you guys on our next tier list. Peace.